Ever since ISIL fighters captured the city of Mosul in northern Iraq in June 2014, it's been a vital stronghold for them. But now there is a major military effort underway to drive the militants out. We begin with CCTV correspondent Natalie Carney, who joins us from Erbil. And Natalie, what's the latest on the battle to retake Mosul? How large is the offensive? Who's involved? And how is it progressing so far?
Well, what we're seeing right now is very good progress on it. Forces are currently surrounding the town of Bashika, just northeast of Mosul. They haven't yet entered the town. They are expected to do so in the next 48 hours. But when they enter and they reclaim the town, they will then be on the doorstep of Mosul itself. Iraqi forces at the start of this operation were approaching Mosul from the south and the east, while the Peshmerga forces were coming at it from the north and the east. Now they're sort of combining their forces the closer to the city that they get. Teams are now going through the some 50-plus villages that they've been able to reclaim over the last week to rid them of any mines left behind by ISIL, a very common tactic, and to completely clear the area of any resistance or any extra threats that could be lingering around, and to enable residents to return. Altogether, there's close to about 100,000 soldiers involved in this operation. We have, as you've mentioned, the Kurdish Peshmerga forces. We have the Iraqi army. There's some local police involved, as well as some Shia groups, as well Turkmens are involved. And controversially, we are now seeing on the ground some participation from Turks, from the Turkish side. Very controversial that, though, however, to Baghdad. And in the skies overhead, of course, we have the U.S.-led coalition. So yes, it's a very complex, it's a huge mosaic of different factions coming together to try to reclaim Iraq's second largest city. Now, there's been a lot of optimism up to this point about the progress that has been made, but there's also a lot of acknowledgement and understanding that this battle is only going to get much more difficult the closer to the actual city that they get.
And Natalie, what do we know about the number of civilians trapped inside Mosul? Also, what is expected on the numbers of refugees? Where might they go?
Well, the latest numbers we're hearing is that 1.2 million people could still be stuck inside Mosul city itself. Now, hundreds of thousands of people escaped 2 years ago, but for the residents that are still trapped in the city, we are hearing some very, very disturbing reports of mass execution, as well as snipers throughout the city, petrified residents. ISIL have gone around collecting everybody's SIM cards because they don't want any information coming out of the city. Food, water, power, as you can imagine, are in very, very limited supply. Now, very few people have been able to leave the area since the offensive began due to the landmines, as I've mentioned, that were set up by ISIL, as well as the snipers. The latest numbers we're hearing is that about 5,000 have been able to flee from the outskirts of Mosul. This isn't even from the city itself. And those that have been able to escape, we're hearing reports, have been paying some rogue ISIL militants to guide them through the landmines that they've set up around the city. I spoke to one man, in fact, who escaped with his 2 daughters. Well, he made it. They didn't. They stepped on a landmine. His 9-year-old little girl and his 17-year-old girl lost their lives in that attempt to flee. So that's obviously consciously going through the residents within the city as well. As far as humanitarian agencies, they currently have room for about 60,000 people, but they are expecting upwards of 200,000 to even 1 million people to flee the city of Mosul when they can find a safe opportunity to do so in the first weeks of the offensive on the city itself.
And how long is this assault expected to last? Weeks or months? And if ISIL is defeated, how much of a defeat would it be for them?
Well, coalition forces have acknowledged and are expecting that the battle for Mosul itself is going to take weeks, could even take months, as ISIL really hikes up their resistance against them. And that is because Mosul is such a very significant and important city for the militants. For one, Mosul was the city where their leader, Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, took to the main mosque 2 years ago and announced the terrorist organization's so-called caliphate, which really sort of launched them into the international media and made them a global threat. It's also expected that Baghdadi himself could actually be in Mosul, so there'd be a lot of attempts to try to make sure that he's not harmed in this battle. Mosul, of course, is also on a very strategic trade route, and it really is the last stronghold for ISIL in Iraq. While they do still hold a couple of pockets, it's nothing in comparison to holding on to Iraq's second largest city. So this is a significant battle for ISIL. They have upwards of 5,000 soldiers, so they claim, in the city, ready to defend the city, and coalition forces are expecting them to defend the city with their lives.
Thanks, Natalie. That's CCTV's Natalie Carney reporting from Erbil.